have a lot of books for this book haul. I have a pile of things just for the end because I won an eBay auction and it's all of the same thing. And the other is a pile of books from another author that I'm just going to save for the end. It's a bunch of crap. I don't want to have them mixed up through this whole thing because there's a lot going on in this book haul. So let's just dive right in. I picked up Street Without Joy by Bernard B. Fall. From the Indochina War to the War in Vietnam. This is one of those like must reads for people who like military history. And this is a really cool copy. It's a Stackpole Books copy. Got like the Library of Military Classics on the back. The cover is in rough shape, but I don't really care. It's a very readable copy. I'm very surprised that the spine isn't broken because it's got pictures in it. And when you put glossy pictures into these things, bad things usually happen. But it's got a very heavy duty book spine, so pretty sure it'll hold up for a while. I've wanted a copy of this for a while now. I plan on making this book part of a mini project that I'm going to do on the Indochina War, along with reading Jean Lartagui's books, The Praetorians and the Centurions. Yes, one of them takes place in Algeria, but it's all about France during its decolonization period. I've already read a book about the war in Algeria, and these will just like tie a neat little bow over that mini project of mine because it's just really interesting and it's just one of those things I want to learn a lot about for almost no reason. Now, this might come as a shock, but I am a big fan of John D. MacDonald. So when I found a cool copy of The Brass Cupcake, yes, this is a new printing. It was originally printed in paperback in like 1949 or something, but this one is just really cool. It's got a blurb on the front from Stephen King. It's in great shape. It came with a dust jacket protector, so I was happy to pick this up. The Brass Cupcake is his first novel. It is okay. I think that even just a few books later, he improves significantly as a writer, which is weird because I've been reading all of his short fiction, and 1946 and 1947, very generic. Toward the end of 47, he starts to become the writer he's going to be throughout his career. By the middle of 1948, you're like, oh yeah, this is John D. MacDonald. This is the guy that will be cooking for the rest of his career. So it's weird that his very first novel is just okay. Speaking of John D. MacDonald and collections, I got Slam the Big Door. I picked this up on eBay. I hit someone with a lowball price and they countered for a low enough price, so I picked this up. Slam the Big Door is one of his more popular novels. I see it all the time. And oh look, it came with like a little thank you bookmark I forgot about. This one is a second printing from Mysterious Press in 1987. It's really cool. I've got some other Mysterious Press stuff here. Mysterious Press is awesome. I need to talk myself out of collecting every Mysterious Press book I see because that will end very badly for me. Speaking of things ending badly for me, I got another NESFA Press book. I got Power and Light, which is volume 3 in the complete short fiction of Roger Zelazny. This collection is incredible. It has non-fiction stuff written by Zelazny in here, like what inspired him to write, that kind of thing. It's got And Call Me Conrad as originally printed in the science fiction magazine. I can't remember which one. It doesn't really matter. I think it was Astounding. It's got some of his poetry. I'm actually surprised at how good Zelazny's poetry is. I'm super happy to have that. I will collect them all eventually. I think I've got like 3 more. And then there's the Ides of October, which is an amazing title. And it's a pictorial bibliography of his works. I want that just to look through. I am like 30% of the way through Playing at the World first edition, and I've already picked up Playing at the World second edition volume 1 as a little treat to myself because I got a bonus at work. I picked up that Zelazny book, Power and Light, and I also picked up Playing at the World Volume 2, 3 Pillars of Role-Playing Games. This book is expensive. It was not getting any cheaper. I picked up Volume 1 from Book Outlet for a reasonable price. But yeah, did you know that books from MIT Press, like other college institutions, are very expensive? The MSRP on this is $55 for a trade paperback. They're pricing it like almost like a textbook. And here's the thing. If this is being used as a text in a class, let me know. I want to take that class. I really enjoy John Peterson and the way he writes about the history of tabletop RPGs. I really enjoyed reading Game Wizards, The Epic Battle for Dungeons and Dragons, which is a lot of the early drama of the creation of D&D. It's very good. John Peterson is one heck of a writer. I will say Playing at the World is dense. I mean, yes, you get a cool book about the nitty-gritty history of tabletop RPGs all the way back to Kriegspiel, which was created by the Prussian military or created for them. Let me give you an example of how dense Playing at the World can get. There is a huge section on the history of probability in tabletop games that devolves into a history of how dice are made and why dice are made the way they're made, and then a history of polyhedral dice. The book is dense, very good, but dense. It's one of those books that's going to take me forever to read because it seems like every time I start reading it on my e-reader, it says that my time to finish has gone up, which makes absolutely no sense. How do I read for half an hour and it tell me, hey, it's going to take you an extra hour to finish this book now that you've read for half an hour? Well, let's move on to a very short thing, which is Home is the Hangman by Roger Zelazny. My wife found this for me. It's a little baby. It's a novella. It's 145 pages, but it's these little pages with this huge graphic around each page. It won the Nebula Award in 1975 and the Hugo Award in 1976 for Best Novella. It follows a protagonist who is tracking down a sentient rogue space exploration robot that returns to Earth to kill its original creators. Holy crap, wait a second. This is part of My Name is Legion. Why did it take me so long to realize that? I was reading the example, and I'll tell you why it took so long to realize that, because I almost blocked My Name is Legion from my mind. I did not have a good time while I was reading it. It's so strange. One of the stories involves the protagonist that is in Home is for the Hangman. Speaking of which, I bought a book I've already read. That's good. I didn't add to my TBR. But Zelazny's protagonist in here is fine. One of the stories is about him trying to solve a mystery about a homicidal dolphin. So do with that what you will. This one is good. So if you were just going to read one thing, read Home is the Hangman. I don't know if I'm going to keep this now because I think I already have a copy of it. Maybe I don't own a copy of My Name is Legion. And if I don't, I won't get one because this is the only story worth reading of the three. The first one's okay, actually. But let's move on. I tried to read Lioness, I think last month. Well, Lioness book 1 in Jack Vance's fantasy series. Wasn't vibing with it. I'm realizing that I might be out of my fantasy phase for a while because I read some science fiction this month, and holy crap, I am in love with science fiction again in a way I didn't think I would fall in love with science fiction again. But that is neither here nor there. I picked up a hardcover copy of The Green Pearl by Jack Vance, which is Lioness 2. It's not in the best shape. Well, the dust jacket's not. The book itself is in really good shape. It is a book club edition, but it's still quite nice. I'm very happy I got it. Now I just need to find the third one. I think there's only 3. Jack Vance, real good. Hopefully I will get into his fantasy, or maybe I'll just read a bunch of his science fiction since I'm on a science fiction kick right now. I wasn't going to buy this, but I think I got an offer I couldn't refuse on eBay, and that is John D. MacDonald by Edward W. Hirschberg, and it's like a little biography of his. I don't know how this compares to The Red Hot Typewriter, which is the biography I've already read about John D. MacDonald. This is a super short book. I mean, it's like 100 pages. So this is more of a study of John D. MacDonald and his writing and not a biography. So maybe I don't have to compare this to the biography. I did find out there's a biography that an author's been working on about John D. MacDonald for like 17 years at least. I read an excerpt from it and it was great, and it's never been published. So maybe that'll happen someday, or maybe not. I don't know. I worry because I read about it on a blog from someone who I don't think is alive anymore. I'm not saying that the author of the biography is dead, but when people are blogging about it and the bloggers don't exist anymore in the time that that book was supposed to come out, it makes me doubt that it will ever have a release date. Let's just move on to a first edition, first printing of Boy's Life. I hear lots of great things about both this book and this author, and I wasn't going to say no to a first edition, first printing, even if it's a little rough. It's a little yellow on the spine. The dust jacket's not very pretty, but the pages are easy to read. It's clean enough. I keep saying that about everything I find. I don't find the best stuff. I do find really good stuff in good shape sometimes, but it might be a little ugly, but it's still going to be a good read. And it's a cool copy to have. And if I don't like it, I'll just ship it off and get something else. So one of the things that's ironic about this book haul is I need to reduce my book collection, not only as a space saving measure, but there are some of my books I don't have any interest in rereading. So why am I holding on to them? Especially if I have digital copies saved somewhere. And the other issue is I own multiple copies of some books that I don't really need to. Some of them I'm just going to gift. Others I'll just trade in or whatever. But here's a book I didn't own and I need to read, and I'm glad I found this copy. That is The Earth of the New Sun, the sequel to the Book of the New Sun. I will read this after I reread the Book of the New Sun because I might be getting rid of this book, even though I just said it was one I wouldn't get rid of. This font hurts to read. I take my glasses off and it's still like smudged. The text looks smudged. I did not open this before I got it. That was a mistake. Oh well, that sucks. Yeah, probably not gonna keep this now. I'll have to get a different copy. I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but like, I don't like that at all. It hurts my eyes to look at it. Oops. So while L. Sprague de Camp does not have the best reputation among fantasy and science fiction readers, and he definitely doesn't have a good reputation with me because the stuff he wrote with Fletcher Pratt, like the Complete Enchanter series, is just like very like mediocre to bad. So I don't know if I would like the stuff that he wrote by himself. I have a book of his poetry. It's the worst poetry I've ever read. I jokingly took it down, and my daughter was like 6 at the time, and I'm like, hey, let me read you a piece of poetry. And I read it, and as I was reading it, I was thinking, this is terrible. And I stopped, and my 6-year-old was like, that was not good. And I said, no, it was not. So it is signed though and numbered. I won't get rid of it, and maybe I'll try reading some of the poetry again. But I got a copy of Lest Darkness Fall, a cool book club edition that I should read because this book is tiny, like 170 pages. And look, the font is okay in this one. It doesn't make me want to stop reading books, so that's nice. This is a really trippy cover. The premise of Lest Darkness Fall. Here it is. Moments ago, Martin Padway had been hurtling through Rome's murderous traffic, clinging to his seat in a little Fiat and trying to pay attention as Professor Tancredi expounded upon his theory of time. So it's about a dude traveling back in time and with the goal of stopping the Dark Ages from starting. Seems interesting enough. It's not really the type of science fiction I've been into lately. I've been really into military science fiction, but it's neither here nor there. Hey, look, more science fiction. The Man Who Folded Himself by David Gerald. This is one of those like must reads from this era of science fiction. Yeah, this is a book club edition with some very sticky pages. I don't like that at all. What in the world? I think someone glued this end paper to the dust jacket. That's terrible. David Gerald wrote the very famous Star Trek episode, The Trouble with Tribbles. So David Gerald considers this book, The Man Who Folded Himself, as his coming out as gay. And so that's really interesting. This was published in 1973. I've wanted to read The Man Who Folded Himself for a long time. I'm glad I finally found a copy. And now we're going to go into something a little different than science fiction. We're going to talk about a science fiction author that wrote a Western. This is Shadow on the Sun by Richard Matheson. I picked this up for June on the Range. It's a cool hardcover copy, and on the cover it has a blurb from Stephen King. Matheson excels at the depiction of one man alone locked in a desperate struggle against a force bigger than himself. That sounds like a quote for I Am Legend and not for this book. Yeah, and it looks like all the blurbs on the back are for I Am Legend. So we'll see if Shadow on the Sun is any good. I've got quite a few Westerns for June on the Range. I got 2 more in this haul alone. I'm really looking forward to reading some more Westerns. I went to a Half Price Books I normally don't go to, and while there I found a bunch of Blue Jay Books, which is a publisher, and there was an interesting George R. R. Martin book that was reprinted through Blue Jay Books. There was a bunch of Theodore Sturgeon, like this one, Venus Plus X. Problem was the other ones were short fiction collections, which I was just talking about, trying not to own duplicates of things. I have the complete collection of Theodore Sturgeon's short fiction, so there's no reason for me to buy a trade paperback, no matter how cool it looks, that has stories I already own. But I didn't own this, and this is a really cool copy of Venus Plus X. I'm looking forward to reading more Theodore Sturgeon. It's crazy. Every time I read one of his short stories, I'm just shocked that he is not more popular. His short fiction is incredible. I've heard that his novels kind of suffer because he is such a good short fiction writer that it's hard for him to stretch something out into a novel. I will find out when I start reading his novels. Might do it after I read most of his short fiction, because every short fiction story from him is good to great. There's not been a single stinker, and I've been reading stuff at the beginning of his career. Now, this one I picked up without a dust jacket. I think I paid like $10 or something. This is a 1928 first edition, and I bought the facsimile dust jacket for it. This is Wild Horse Mesa by Zane Grey. This is a fake dust jacket cover, but I will say this is from Facsimile Dust Jackets. They're the one that makes this and it's identical, except that it has like a little facsimile dust jackets thing in the top, so people aren't getting ripped off. It shows up in the mail pre-wrapped in a dust jacket protector. How cool is that? I think it was like $25 to have this shipped to me, and I'm just so happy that I now have a good enough dust jacket cover. It seems maybe a little pixelated, or that might have just been what the original dust jacket looked like. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. It looks great, and it will look really good against my first edition, first printing of Destry Rides Again. That also has a facsimile dust jacket. I might start collecting vintage Westerns. Another thing about Zane Grey, he wrote a collection of baseball stories, and I'm reading the first one. It's pretty good. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I think it was written in like 1919 or something, 1920, and Facsimile Dust Jackets sells a dust jacket, which means I need to find a naked hardcover for cheap so that I can have it as well. I'm hoping I like Zane Grey. I could not read Riders of the Purple Sage. I tried multiple times. I couldn't stand it. So hopefully other Zane Grey writings will work, like Wild Horse Mesa. I'm leaning toward just sitting down like an old man and cracking open my 1928 first edition of Wild Horse Mesa in June and just reading it every evening before bed. I've got a like 50-year-old. It's not a recliner. I don't know what do you call a recliner that doesn't recline? Rocking chair, I guess, but it looks like a recliner. I've got one of those. So maybe I'll just sit in that and read this beautiful book that even after all this time, the printing is pristine. It looks so good. Who made this? How did this Earth and the New Sun end up so bad? Published by Orb? What is Orb? Is that like Tor, but with extra steps? Yeah, it's an Orb edition by Tom Doherty. So yeah, this is Tor with extra steps. Why does this font make my eyes hurt so bad? And this was published in 1997 and it looks like crap. And then I've got this book published in 1928 that is very crisp, very easy to read. What is going on? What's up with these publishers? How did they open this and think, oh man, we had a run where the font's blurry. Oh well, and just send it out. Yeah, I'm getting rid of that book. I'm salty. I paid $10 for that stupid thing. But let's move on to Soma Blues by Robert Sheckley. I've wanted to read Robert Sheckley for a while. The premise for this is interesting. It's about a kind of sketchy detective, and he's been hired to help figure out where this new drug that's on the street is coming from. And he's kind of forced into it. I don't even know if he's going to get paid based on the description, but I picked this up for like $1. It seems interesting. Short book. I've heard of Robert Sheckley. I've read nothing by him, and you know, I love me some crime fiction, and the character is an alternate detective. I don't know what that means. I guess I'll find out when I read it. This next one I picked up is just for looking at the pictures because I can't read Spanish. But I picked up España Diversa. This is from like the early 80s, and it is just, as you can see from the front, beautiful photographs of Spain. There's like 20 pages about from what little I am capable of translating from my terrible Spanish is a history of the diversity of Spain, followed by a few hundred pages of beautiful photographs. And so that's what this is for, is just looking through all these beautiful photographs of Spain. And I think the 1980s, for some reason, it does not give a date in this, but the text is from Luis Carandel, and then the photographer is Ramon Massats. And yeah, I just really like the photography. I like photo books, picture books, you know. What's a book without pictures? That's just one of those fun things to flip through instead of, doom scrolling on my phone or something. Now, last month, I think I read Writing the Novel from Plot to Print to Pixel. Well, I picked up a copy of Writing the Novel from Plot to Print, which makes me very happy. I really like writing books. I plan on going back through this, and I'll go through it like eyes on paper. I love Lawrence Block's writing. You're going to see a couple of his books coming up. I highly recommend Writing the Novel from Plot to Print to Pixel to anyone interested in crime writing or even just interested in crime fiction as a genre. It's a really cool way to dip your toe into the very large ocean of crime fiction. I probably shouldn't have bought this one. I straight up bought it because it was the cheapest one. This is The Warrior's Path by Louis L'Amour. Then I get it home and I'm like, oh man, this is a Sackett novel. So I might just read it as is, or I might start back at the beginning of the Sackett series. I've heard good things about it, but I tried reading the first one and I wasn't feeling it. Might just jump right into it. I have been wanting to make a video about reading a book that's in the middle of a relatively large series with no context. So I want to do it with fantasy because we know epic fantasy, for some reason, they're like, I gotta have 14 books for this series. And we know that each book sells a little less than the previous one. The further the series goes, the less likely people are to own the later copies. There's a lot of books out there, and so it's really hard to justify reading, however many in a row. I mean, not for me, I'll binge them, but for a lot of people, a book series, especially a book series like in fantasy that has like this narrative that spans all 10 or 11 books, no one's going to be picking up book 10 off the shelf at their Barnes and Noble or wherever they're buying books and thinking, you know what, I want to start this series. I don't care that this says book 9 on the cover. Let's just go for it. I want to do that. I need help finding a fantasy series, not that will be easy to jump into in the middle. I just need help finding a fantasy series that will be interesting, that I can just pick up a book in the middle of, and hopefully it'll hold my attention and I won't be lost. That's the experiment I want to do. I want to see if I get lost, see if these books make any sense with no previous context. Because if you gave me Lord of Chaos in the Wheel of Time, which is one of my favorite books in the series, and I knew nothing about the first 5 books, I'd be like, what is happening? I don't understand. Who are these people and why do I care? So I want to try that. And the Sackett book isn't really going to do that because I think this is a standalone. It has to do with the main Sackett dude's grandkid's grandkid or something. It doesn't matter. It's a Western for June on the Range. Will I get to that one? It's at the bottom of my list of Westerns I will read for June on the Range, so maybe. I really like William Manchester. I haven't read a bad book from him yet. His biography of H.L. Mencken is great. The Arms of Krupp is one of my favorite historical books ever. And Goodbye Darkness is one of the best World War II memoirs I've ever read. I don't think you can go wrong with William Manchester, even if A World Lit Only by Fire is, let's say, hyperbolic in the stories it tells about the end of the Dark Ages. It's still really entertaining to read, even though some of the facts are maybe a little untruthy, I guess we'll put it that way. Well, I picked up The Death of a President, November 1963 by William Manchester. This copy's not in the best shape, as I keep saying, but I saw this little publisher emblem on the side and I thought, oh, that's weird. That's kind of cool. What is it? So then I crack it open and this is a Meiya Taiwan edition. This is a direct photocopy of the original, but published for Taiwan, and it's in English. So I just thought it was really fascinating that somehow a Taiwanese copy of The Death of a President, which was sold for $2.50 in Taiwan, but in the United States it was $10. But yeah, it says for sale in Taiwan only. 1967 is when it was published. This is just cool. I like this stuff. Pages are very thin though, and this book is stiff. The pages are slick and almost like Bible paper thin. If you know, you know when I say Bible paper thin. But it's a cool copy, and I want to collect everything from William Manchester. I'm going to read it all, so I might as well have interesting copies. Hey, look, the book at the bottom of that stack needs to be saved for the end. So let me move that out of the way, and let's go into Burglars Can't Be Choosers by Lawrence Block. This is a signed copy. It's pretty cool. Even though my name is not the name in here. I just really like that I got a signed copy because I love this book. Burglars Can't Be Choosers is great. And you know what else is great? Owning another cool matching hardcover. This is The Burglar Who Liked to Quote Kipling. Lawrence Block talks about this one a fair bit in writing the novel from plot to print to pixel, because he said when he was going into it, he's talking about research and said, you know, I could have read everything Kipling ever published in order to have a book about a burglar quoting Kipling, but instead I just read the things that I thought Bernie Rodenbar, who is the main character of the series, would read of Kipling's. So I picked some poetry and a couple of the stories, and that's all I used. And he's talking about not going overboard when it comes to research for your novel, where it ends up being just a bunch of research and very little writing. Now, I made a review of this book, so I've already read it, but I really wanted a physical copy, and that's The Sunlit Man by Brandon Sanderson. This book is great. I love it. It's one of my favorite Cosmere novels. It's just so fun, and I knew that I wanted a physical copy because this is one of those books I want to just sit down and read again and take my time with. I just can't get over how cool this is. One of the things I really enjoy is now that Brandon Sanderson has like FU money, he can do what he wants, like putting all this really cool original art in all of his books. Like, yeah, this one's distributed by Tor, but you know that he can just tell them, no, it needs more art. What are they going to say? He says, maybe I'll just stop writing for a while. I'll focus on side projects through my own publisher. What is Tor going to do? So they have to listen, kind of the way Brandon Sanderson dealt with Audible. And just like, hey, what if I don't put these out on Audible? What's Audible going to do? Maybe they should change their tactics. And then, you know, they kind of did. Not perfect, but at least improvements were made. Don't know what this has to do with The Sunlit Man. The book is very good. Speaking of books that I don't think you can read without context, The Sunlit Man is fun, but the really hard-hitting emotional scenes in it would mean nothing to someone who hasn't read the Stormlight Archive. It's also really strange that it came out before Wind and Truth, because I read Wind and Truth, then read The Sunlit Man, and The Sunlit Man hit me like a truck because of everything that happens in Wind and Truth. I don't think it would have hit as hard if I'd read it before. So that's one of those other don't always read in publication order. Speaking of publication order, let's get into these books I won on eBay and found at library sales, and they all have the same theme-ish. It's all crime fiction, kind of. I'm not going to hold them up in order because I don't know the order. I won an eBay bid for a bunch of mass market paperbacks from Glen Cook. I got a copy of The Tyranny of the Night. I'm just going to give this to someone that is interested in reading this series. Don't know who or when, but that is not why I wanted to win this. And I also paid like $12 after shipping for all of these mass market paperbacks. Oh crap, I forgot. It also has book 2 in the Instrumentalities of the Night. So that one will be set aside as well for someone. The Garrett P.I. stuff is why I needed it. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Garrett P.I. books. Some of these have only been published in mass market paperback. You can get the first like 9 novels or maybe a few extras if you go for the hardcovers like book club edition, but you can get trade paperbacks like Garrett Files and so on and so forth. That's how I read them initially, and then I read like the last half digitally. But Bitter Gold Hearts, Angry Lead Skies, one of my favorites. This is one of the books in the series where Glen Cook just said, I'm gonna do what I want. Yeah, this is my playground. Let's do something crazy and completely unexpected. But I can't spoil what happens in that one because I don't know if you can guess it from Angry Lead Skies. I'd be very impressed. But Gilded Latin Bones, all of these have like metal themes. It was inspired by John D. McDonald's Travis McGee series, like the naming convention, because each one of those is a color. Each one of these has to do with metal. Cruel Zinc Melodies. This one is okay. It kind of drags in places, but I still had a really good time with it. Cold Copper Tears is one of the early ones. It's good. Whispering Nickel Idols. I mean, it's all fantasy and crime fiction tied together. It's about Garrett. I made a video about it. You just have to go check that out. And then Deadly Quicksilver Lies. Like, I love these covers. I want to own them all in mass market paperback. This is one of the times where I break the rules on collecting mass market paperbacks because it's the only way to get them all complete. And I just love them. I love the art on them. They're so goofy and just fun. I thought that it came with a copy of Petty Pewter Gods, which is one I wanted to talk about because that's another one where he just kind of does what he wants. He takes the traditional like trope of gods and fantasy and turns it into this cosmic horror hellscape where the world could end if a contract is broken between like the gods and where they're from. I have a problem not only with buying too many books, but I'm now addicted to crime fiction, and one of the crime authors is Donald Westlake, so we're about to see a lot of Donald Westlake hardcovers that I picked up for like $1 each or something. We got Drowned Hopes, Dortmunder novel. Only one of these is a book club edition hardcover. The rest are full size, so I'm going to struggle to collect the series in full size hardcovers. We got Bad News, another Dortmunder novel. I haven't checked if any of these are signed because they might be. I don't know. There's a lot of signed Donald Westlake at Recycled Books, and I'm going to try to pick up as many books in the series as I can signed if I can get them for a reasonable price. We've got Smoke, the disappearing novel. This is not a Dortmunder novel. It has like a goofy premise where this thief is stealing from like a cigarette company or something. Yeah, the American Tobacco Research Institute is trying to prove that smoking is good for you or something or other. Well, this smoke hits him and he becomes invisible, like permanently invisible, the thief. And this book is just about that. And Donald Westlake is just so good. The first Parker novel under his pen name Richard Stark is like rough to read because Parker is the worst. But I think that's one of the things that makes it so good is that you really realize that Parker kind of sucks as a person, but you're also rooting for him because he's dealing with people that suck more than he does, and he's just such a competent badass. And yeah, with the Dortmunder stuff, I heard that the first Dortmunder novel was supposed to be a Parker novel, but it ended up just being too funny, and so Donald Westlake leaned into it and then put it under his own name instead of his pen name with a whole new series. And boy, I love Dortmunder. I might read a Dortmunder book this week. Yeah, I think I will. Speaking of Dortmunder, we got What's the Worst That Could Happen, which is the only book club edition hardcover. Still happy I got it. These are beautiful. I might have to separate my crime fiction from my regular fiction. I've already done that with like vintage science fiction and fantasy or like heavy hitters. They're all out here in my living room, and I'm probably going to have to do the same thing for crime fiction. Normally, I just put everything in alphabetical order. The people that don't put their books in alphabetical order, like, what are you doing? The way my books are sorted is if it's a special thing, like a shelf of one author, then it's separated by series and then by like where they go in the series or publication order. Sometimes it's not publication order. It's more of a chronological order according to the internal timeline of the series. And then I have a wall over here that is all war nonfiction. And then at the bottom is flexing on people that I'm smart books. I got stuff like the Iliad and the Odyssey, and it's multiple translations. Thank you very much. And then A History of the World from H.G. Wells. You know, that cool stuff. The stuff you gotta have in the living room so people know you have a brain, or at least you can try to convince them you have a brain. But yeah, that's all war stuff. It is in alphabetical order. And then behind me is, the top is The Shrine to Glen Cook, which is expanding. It needs to be its own section now. And of course, it is separated by series and then the order in which they go. And then beneath that, we have anthologies, and they're themed anthologies. So I've got like all of the Thieves World stuff in order, and then I have all the Wild Cards stuff in order. Yeah, the rest of the books in here are vintage science fiction and fantasy in alphabetical order. And then in my bedroom, I have a nonfiction section that is in alphabetical order. But the writing books are separate, and so are the baseball books. So I'm not using the Dewey Decimal System or anything, but I've got them separated into chunks because eventually you get so many that it's kind of drowning out the rest of the stuff. And crime fiction is starting to do that to my regular fiction in my bedroom. So I'm going to have to do something about that. I think I rambled for a long time about that. Sorry for the sidetrack. I got one more book, and that is Good Behavior by Donald E. Westlake. And it is another Dortmunder novel. I really like collecting books. Sometimes I think it's getting out of hand. Most of them still fit on my shelves, not my mass market paperbacks. We're not going to talk about that. I want to get wire racks for those, like the little spinny ones, and put those in my library once I have a dedicated space. I think that would be cool. I might have too many to do that though. We'll see. Let me know in the comments if I should make an unhauling video of the stuff I'm getting rid of and why I'm getting rid of it. It's not going to be because this book sucks or whatever. If it ends up being that, then I won't release a video. But if y'all want to see an unhauling video, let me know. And let me know what y'all have picked up lately. Let me know if you have read any of these. Thanks for watching. And with that, I'll see you next time.